recognition process. So what's hard right now is to make sure we're all food, so we'll be creating lots of things. So we didn't get much notice. We got about 7 weeks notice. This was We're working with the KPTA and other donors who are interested in the water fountain. So we wanted our goal to get those 3 bids. We have 1. 2 other plumbers have not followed through on showing up to give us their bids. So we're just waiting for that piece. We do have, so we're starting a new unit in PE, a bowling unit, where our kids are going to be walking over to Payless Lanes. And the police have confirmed that they will block traffic when their kids cross Southwest Highway. So that'll be a 3-week unit. We will not go over when there's inclement weather, but we want the kids to, really pushing that lifelong fitness. And that anybody can really bowl. So that's just for middle school. Well, we hope. So that's just for middle school, and there's a fee attached to that. We did let our parents know if that is a challenge for them to please, reach out and let us know. We did have our interventionist start, so we'll share her bio this week in Notables. She's working with our students in the area of reading and writing, and which is a position we've been trying to fill for years. So she started with us, and she's doing a fabulous job. She's a graduate of St. Mary's out of Indiana, and she's great. She's real good at it. And it's interesting, Jim, this will make you happy. She was on a Fulbright soccer scholarship.
Oh,
Nice. So, yeah, very happy to participate, to volunteer, to do
Good.
coaching,
Okay, perfect.
training, some
Boy,
workshops.
soccer man.
There we go.
Yeah, right?
Every night.
Yeah.
So she's, we just need that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah,
let's
well, fine, yeah.
Very happy.
jump on that.
Yeah, I will.
And then we head into spring break. I did meet with parents, and 2 of our parents are here for our uniform committee. I'm waiting. I had a call today with the president and owner of School Bells. We were unable to connect today. And then I've reached back out to Tommy Hilfiger, who gave us a lot of samples. So we're looking at, there's one piece that they don't have, so they have to present it to their board to see if they can contract that piece out and then see what, pricing wise. So I did poll the preschool parents, and it was 50-50. 1 said I could go either way. So,
Beautifully non-committed.
Non-committed.
Beautifully non-committed.
so, we'll poll the new parents when they, our new parents when they sign up, and then we'll, there were pros and cons for both. I could see we allowed parents an opportunity to give comments and feedback, and all comments made complete sense, where they were coming from. So I'll have more on that very soon. We did have all of our registration forms turned into fillable PDFs, so we won't have to take pictures or any of those things. We'll be able to fill them out and then email them right back. So that's done, and we'll be ready to go for registration. And that's we've had a lot of calls, so for preschool for next year. A lot of calls. So I was talking to Jim early today, and we're just talking about space and what does that mean for our pre-K 3s and 4s and having enough room next year. So it's gonna.
We're gonna go to second floor.
There you go.
Fundraise now.
We
Yeah.
need space. So we just need to see where that goes, those numbers fall. Yeah. Our open house, I'd like to get that out to the other parishes. So see if we can make that happen and see where we're going. Any questions for me?
And just to clarify registration, since everything's become fillable, it'll just be an email home as opposed to
We
the
won't send
packet.
any.
Great. And we'll set up a link, right? We talked about that. People can go right there. Okay.
I wanted to mention, Mrs. Linda, I haven't had a chance to tell you, but I was talking with Father Nicholas about an hour ago. And he will be shadowing, and I rearranged this for him to be shadowing me tomorrow. And he'll be in the classroom with me tomorrow, because we had to move my classes from today to tomorrow. So we had clergy meetings tomorrow, and His Eminence will be here tomorrow, of course, and join us tomorrow. And so all 3 of us will be this week tomorrow. And we'll get started. And as Father Nicholas mentioned to the children, there are good classes in school and teaching. And get started. Okay.
complaint about audio on I'll work on the audio. Hold on, working on
It's all
audio.
your fault.
It's all my fault.
Whatever.
Whatever. I think when we brought this over, so if I talk like directly at you, you can hear me?
That's great. Yeah.
Yes, okay, there we are. So I'm just gonna yell at this screen.
Dean likes it.
It's not awkward at all.
No, not awkward at all. Nothing I do is awkward. Okay, anything else principal report wise?
No.
Thank you, Beth.
For a parade, May 1st.
Oh, yeah.
There is a parade. I saw it on somewhere on social media. They posted it's May 1st.
Oh, wow.
So they are doing it. Because I saw Boston was doing it, so I'm like, I get it that that's coming, but they did post it.
They did May 1st, okay. All right. Connie couldn't be with us today. She is celebrating a very special anniversary with her parents. So we wish them well, but I do have her update, so I'll read that. She said first, so before I read Connie's update, and based on some feedback I got back, I'm going to jump to one thing. We are going to welcome 2 new school board members. And Elaine will be relinquishing her position on the school board moving forward. So I wanted to make that clear. I'll read Connie's update, and why I wanted to make that clear first will make sense now as soon as I read Connie's update. Okay. Connie says, first, I would like to thank Elaine for her support and guidance over the years. Her love for our school and community is evident through all she has accomplished. Elaine has often gone above and beyond her duties and has helped us at a number of our events. Though she will be missed, we hope she knows that she is grandfathered into helping out at the fest, is our official parfait maker, and that Gloria will still be chasing you at church to get our check signed. We can't say it enough. Thank you, Elaine. Next, Connie said, since the building has been closed to visitors, she doesn't have much to report at this time. She wanted to say thank you for making the school board meetings available for those that are not able to attend the meetings in real time. I believe it's important to be informed with the happenings of our children's school. It's understandable that other obligations may prevent us from attending a meeting, so being able to access these meetings at our convenience is a wonderful way to stay connected with the school. I myself look forward to reviewing the meeting when my schedule allows. We'd like to thank the school board for providing our staff and students lunch last week. And that's the end of her update. So one of the other things that Connie mentioned to us when we met in January was having a more reliable way, obviously besides Zoom and all those things. So we are recording the meeting on YouTube, and hopefully it's going to work out. It's a learning curve for all of us. As you can see, I had great technical assistance from Vanessa trying to get this run, but the goal is to obviously run them in a live stream and then to also post the video. Yeah, and then we should be able to post it directly to the Correas website. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to the open school board positions. So we did have positions that were open on the school board, and we accepted applications, and there are 2 new appointments to the school board. Obviously, we mentioned this in the letter, but what I really wanted to do is just highlight a couple things about our new members. We'll be welcoming 2 new members, Dr. Maria Duros. Maria has an extensive background in the St. Constantine and Helen and Correas community, in addition to her variety of involvements in the community at large. She's a board certified doctor in family medicine. She works currently through DuPage Medical or Dooley Health, and takes an active role in a variety of community and medical related events. And so we're excited to welcome her to the board. Both she and our second board member, Mr. Paul Vallis. Paul's a Correas graduate, for some who don't know, but his background in education is extensive. So just to briefly read, Paul is a nationally recognized education and public sector finance expert with 40 years service working in the public interest. Paul consults to underperforming school districts to help them more effectively leverage finances, strengthen educational delivery, and narrow the achievement gap. Paul, in 2016, headed the team that delivered to the Department of Justice a comprehensive program to revamp education and occupational training in the nation's 122 federal prisons, a pillar of President Obama's criminal justice system reform agenda. I could go on and on and on. He served in a variety of positions. He was the first CEO of Chicago Public Schools, was appointed in 1995, and a variety of accomplishments that kind of stem from his relationship with education. So we're thrilled to have him on as well. Both Paul and Maria will join us at our March meeting for the first time. They will have a brief introductory session that we will go through, and then they'll be ready for business in March moving forward.
Paul also
Well,
taught
taught here.
Did he talk
I was
teacher
in
as well?
I was in 3rd grade when he was teaching 8th grade, which was across.
Okay, I thought I had heard that, and I know he
Yeah,
was
he
my he was our keynote
Mrs.
speaker.
Goodneck.
I believe, when I graduated Carias in '93. So, he's been at several galas, and he's always reached out and stayed connected to the community. So it's exciting to have them on board. We're, like I said, there's a lot of amazing things Carias has to accomplish, and so I look forward to moving forward. Connie Stoll on my Thunder Lane, you have been an amazing person to work with, both as a board member and as a school board chair. And it's like Hotel California. You checked in, you
but
can't
not
escape.
forgotten.
So you'll be around, I know,
Gone, but not
helping
forgotten.
us.
I'll be
But
around.
I can't say enough in the way that you've helped to guide our parent organization and to really lay a foundation for our community to grow in a positive way. And I appreciate that very much. So the other thing is at our January meeting, we did approve the 2022 school board meetings through December. I have it under new business as well, but there are 2 dates that I need to shift. And so I wanted to bring those up. We can do it as new business, but since we have them right here, the July and August dates, there are a couple of options. We can keep the dates as they are and hold them virtually. I'm not super bummed about doing a virtual meeting in July. The August one I think might be important to be in person, and if it were, I don't know if that week that school starts is like insane and worth your effort to have a meeting that week. But unfortunately, I'll be out of town and not able to. I have no flexibility. Hopefully.
Yeah, I just same thing for us.
Hopefully, assuming we're not at some type of larger conflict, yes, I will say I'm going to Greece. Hopefully, Putin, you hear that? If you're watching YouTube, man. But anyway, we'd have to look at those 2 dates. So I don't know if we want to hold off and maybe address those in the future and know that they potentially are virtual meetings or can be held. I just want to make us aware. So we don't have to vote on it today. Okay, in terms of new business, we'll start off with tuition. I don't know, Dean, if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Any thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And we can hear you, so that's good. Any thoughts on, I know you've been looking at tuition rates, looking at where we're at, and was hoping for some feedback.
Yeah, so I can certainly share some early insights on the numbers. So, we've really benefited this past school year on donation. So, as Elaine had helped point it out, we received a PPP ERTC credit for about $75,000, and that's really kind of helped bolster our financials and really guided us to kind of like a break-even point for this year. So, currently we're about 167 students. We put an increase in tuition last year to $5,600, and again, trending where we think we're going to be, we should be right at that break-even mark. So now looking to next year, after level setting that, it's obviously, it's how much will we charge our students and how many students do we expect for the school year. I think we'll have a little bit population base next year. Given the light number of students in pre-K and kindergarten, so hopefully those classes do grow. I am recommending some increases in both the pre-K and the kindergarten fees, ranging from like 7 to 9%. Those fees were not touched last year. And so, it's given inflation and all other sort of cost pressures, we should be thinking about increasing them. Additionally, you talk about this inflation again. I do recommend increasing school tuition to $5,900 to $5,900, which is about a 5% increase from the current rate of $5,600. And again, given that increase, we won't recognize the full benefit of that, given that about 3/4 of the student population locked in at the current rate this past year. So, as you remember, last year we had the kind of incentive that if you registered by the March timeline, you'd lock in that rate for 2 years. So, that being said, I'd say it's more of a move looking at the following year than necessarily this year, right? So we want to keep commensurate of that. So we talk about on the tuition front. On the other side, we also need to consider our teachers, and so we'll be recommending some pay increases there for our full-time staff. There's cost pressures for every company, and if you start looking at kind of market data. That I've been looking at merit increases ranging from 3.5% to 4%. So we want to try to keep our teachers, we should be thinking about something similar to that as well.
So Dean, I think you nailed it on the head. We got the $75,000 credit. We're looking to do one more because we could do 2 payroll periods. So we're looking at trying to do one more. I think there's one more that might be available to us. I talked to our payroll person, so that we're looking at that. So hopefully that'll be another gift this year that'll come our way. And really, I think the other number that really kind of stood out in 2021 is the at-large donations from the community at large, which was probably the highest I've ever seen it, which was $40,000 that came the way of Correas last year, free and clear cash. I mean, some were as high as over $9,990. We had a tuition, a check. We had another check for $5,000. So, that has been a great that has been a great enhancer between that and the gala that kind of pushes us over to being, kind of break even. So I don't want that, just the how great our parish at large is in supporting the school. So I wanted to mention that as well. That was $40,000. That's not an insignificant amount of money.
That's a good chunk of change.
We can only hope and pray that we can replicate, that money coming into 2022. That's an unknown, right? That's at the, what the parish can, feels that they can give us. So we can only hope, right, and pray that kind of happens again in 22.
And I will say from a fundraising perspective, it's certainly always been my intent since the school board has kind of taken over the running and the management of the gala to make that into a $100,000 plus event. I think this year was a really strong indicator of what future years could be like. We were, prior to COVID, we were, very close to $90,000. COVID obviously impacted it, but then we came back incredibly strong. Even though we didn't have, we were, probably 50 guests short of a typical gala. The tremendous support, particularly this was the first year where we had multiple sponsorships at each level. Previously, maybe a handful of 16 or 1,200, whatever, you know what I mean? You get a handful here and there, but we literally had, representation across the board. So I'd like to think that momentum with the right hard work and effort can really make that October gala something maybe we can, really push for too.
I mean, George, we've talked about this for years, right? That fundraising number, that fundraising pocket
Makes a huge difference.
Well, it goes from you're in the red 150,000 to you're not, right? And what can you sustain without that? Because you can't sustain 150,000
No.
in the red.
I've
That's
always
just not
said
sustainable.
there's, schools on the north side, they're putting their galas on their $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000. There's no reason that we can't aim high, which we've always done. And we've succeeded, we went from a $30,000, $29,000 gala to, we've really worked hard, and we're in the right time frame when you research fundraising, when you research growth. We're right where we are. Even with a pandemic, we're in a really good, a really good place. So I bring that up obviously because we need to think about that as we move forward with these discussions. Sure.
I was going to say that private schools cannot live off of tuition alone.
No.
And I don't care where you go or who you look at. So the fundraising component is really needed. And I'm glad we've come across the bridge because Correas over the years has never gotten the level of fundraising that you're able to attract now. And it's very, very necessary. Otherwise, you're going to have tuition of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a student, then that won't work.
And I think it's important to note, even with Dean's suggested that 5% increase, bringing it up to $5,900, we're still well below the standard private school tuition in the area, or just right competitive with, if you want to go that route. There's always outliers in terms of tuition being high or low. You kind of knock out your Everest Academy and your other low liars, but we're still very competitive, if not less than your traditional, public or private school environment.
And all the Greek ones are over 6 up north.
Yes.
Yeah,
they are.
They're over 6, so we're fine.
So Dean, we converted to QuickBooks Online. So every month now, we'll be closing out February. You'll be getting our P&L sent over to you directly. So you'll have it monthly.
The excitement.
Yeah.
Jim, any thoughts on your end, tuition-wise, opinion-wise?
Just to note that too, the same Mike's is $59.50. So,
Right,
it's
so yeah, that
right
was
in the
about-
ballpark.
Yeah, we're right there. And really, St. Mike's is, you get a nice comparison. I feel like when you look at a school like that, even though their population's a little higher than ours, we have a similar.
And that's current year, so that doesn't.
That's
factor
current. Yeah,
in
that doesn't
tuition
factor in tuition increases. And if I recall correctly, they're going to see an increase as well, in their tuition. So I think at this point, given what I've heard and the conversations that we've had, we're looking at, and I know you said the pre-K, that's pre-K 3 and 4. We haven't raised their tuition, I know, in quite some time. You said anywhere between 7 and 9% is what you were
Yeah.
thinking. Is there big, do you have an argument one way or the other in terms of that 7 or 9 or 8 or whatever falls in between?
So we have like different rates based on like days and attendance and half day versus full day. And so, just trying to make the numbers somewhat round too, like, I don't want to raise it by a quarter per day.
Right.
So that's why you get the fluctuation between 7 to 9%.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So I guess, are there any questions, concerns, anything you want to pick apart, Dean or Elaine? No?
Preschool,
We can share more during executive session.
Yeah, well, I mean, we discussed this previously too last year when we did tuitions. There will be annual increases in tuition. We need to support our staff. There's a great comparison that was made, and I'm going to put it out there. Our staff makes on average what a Costco employee makes. So I'm going to say that again. Our staff makes on average what a Costco employee makes. So we're going to do our best to support our teachers and our staff. I think we have to. We have some incredibly talented staff. I know Beth can speak to this, but we're really in a position where we've been able to retain for the past couple of years. And the thing with teaching is when you hire new teachers, when they leave you after a year or two, all that professional development, all that training, all that effort goes to benefit someone else. And it's true in any job, but in teaching in particular, your goal is, as a principal, is to lock them in and keep them. You really want to develop a teacher through that like 5th, 6th, 7th year of teaching where they're really confident in their game, where they're really improving and they're really there. And I think we have an opportunity to do that, but we have to remember we have to support them as well. I mean, I think these increases just reflect the times in general and what needs to happen. So I guess I would take a motion. We'll begin with the pre-K through K fees to see basically what amounts to a 7 to 9% increase in the current schedule based on full, half day, 3-day, 5-day, a whole mix. Anybody want to make that motion?
I get some motion. I motion to raise between 7 and 9%, making the numbers round. That's why the range for, as suggested, 19.
All right, that's pre-K 3 and 4. Anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The second relationship to tuition would then be K through 8. The recommendation has been an increase of 5%, which amounts for individual tuition at $5,900. Obviously, we have, the way the scale comes out will show with stewardship letter, without stewardship letter, so that base number may be higher. So I would need the same thing, a motion to increase K through 8.
And that will
By
affect
5%.
all students, right? Because if you locked in. you
Right,
don't
so
have
what
to-
Dean mentioned, and
Yeah.
I thank you for mentioning that, I'll clarify that again. We did offer last year that if you completed your registration completely, fees paid, paperwork turned in on time, that you'd be locked into the 2021, 2022 tuition rate for an additional year. And we did have, I think, pretty close to 3/4 of the parents who took us up on that. So it'll impact new families and it'll impact all preschool students. They weren't part of the lock-in rate. And then anyone obviously who chose or was unable to register beforehand. Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion on that one?
I'll motion.
Mhm.
I'll motion the money.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, I think I appreciate you for that. Dean and Elaine both, thank you for your research and time in between our meetings and kind of gathering data and crunching numbers for us. I know it's your jobs in real life, but I know it's a lot of work when you're doing it on the side. So we appreciate that. Okay, next thing is security fee, right? So we talked about these security improvements that we're seeing. I'll give everyone a copy. This is the actual, it's pretty straightforward. So obviously we've made improvements and those improvements are going to require upkeep. And so for the 2022-2023 school year, there is a proposition to add a security fee. This fee would be similar to what you see in technology fee, Chromebook fee. I'm forgetting some, right? There's art fee. So this is separate from your tuition. And the proposal is a fee of $25 will be added onto each fax account for the students in K through 8th grade. So this is not a preschool fee. This fee covers 2 replacement fobs and 1 replacement lanyard, as well as security maintenance and enhancements. Lost fobs and lanyards beyond those covered in the fee will be assessed a $10 replacement fee per item. So, Beth, you could speak to this better. I have you been replacing fobs and lanyards here and there?
So it's been interesting. The first lanyards that we got were really cheap. So kids would just literally, and then, so we went through those. We had ordered new ones that were better made, better quality. And so, and then these, somehow, I don't know how they're ripping, but kids are easily just kind of ripping the sides. They'll come down and so, but the fobs themselves, lost fobs, we usually try to give them a week to say, look in your backpack, your locker, under your bed, in the car. So we haven't had that many lost ones, but they certainly work hard on them to first. There's a lot of more forgotten than lost.
Mhm.
So we've had to only turn off a few.
So, obviously the fee would cover those types of instances. We'll have a full school year ahead of us with the system in place, and then, any future adjustments, enhancements, things of that nature. So this would be another item. Anyone have any comments on the fee proposal as written or the explanation as written?
I mean, it covers upgrades too, because I know we're gonna have to upgrade the system.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
that system was costly, so I mean,
Right, and there'll be doors that get broken or things that happen where, at least we're guaranteeing we're not in a rut looking for that money or trying to find extras. My online friends are good, we're good. Okay, so I would need the same thing in terms of a motion to approve and a second.
Go out with the bang if parents want to hate me for raising them. Yeah, I might still be the one. I won't be around.
The motion,
To
ladies.
take the heat.
All righty,
The
Lane.
motion.
Second?
But I'll still be here as a second, so.
Yeah, there's my second, he can take all of it.
Take away that seat.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Jimmy's like, yeah, you do it.
All right.
We're on the-
I'm glad we're on a roll because I got more people. I got more. All right, next. So as we've continued to discuss the needs of the school and we've talked about how, there's a variety of things that are needed to support a private school. And that's just, that's a fact, whether it's donations, whether it's volunteer hours, people have a variety of ways to get involved. But one of the things that we've noticed, and I can speak to this, as a parent, as a former member of the PTA exec board, as an outside observer, I think anyone at this table, Jim and Elaine, who ran large events like the picnic and Junior Olympics for years and years and years, and even in my previous life as a National Honor Society advisor for 15 years, getting people to volunteer is probably one of the hardest things ever. Getting them to show up is probably the second hardest thing, and then getting them to actually do what they're there for kind of rounds it out, right? So when they talk about volunteers, and this just isn't me, but in life, when you talk about volunteers, there's the leader volunteer, there's the get her done volunteer, and then there's the have coffee and chat volunteer. And so when you have an event, you have to in your mind account for all three of those, right? You're shaking your head. You're I get that. You feel me, right? It's true, right? And it's not just us, it's everywhere. I'm not speaking to Correas specifically, but here's the deal with Correas. In a normal year, which I think we all feel confident we're moving towards, there's a variety of events that take place. And what ends up happening is some of them are very popular, and I'm going to pick on the moms. It's usually moms duking it out for spots at, things like Hot Lunch or things of that nature. But then there's other events, like the church picnic and the Junior Olympics. And not everybody's so excited for those. I can't figure out why, right? Santa's Secret Workshop. So for the last 2 years, and I think, again, I defer to George sometimes because he's, been here, but we have talked at length as a school board, I think on and off for several years about what do you do? How do you fix the volunteer problem? How do you engage people? How do you bring people in? And, there's no simple answer to that. But what has been suggested, and I know, again, the PTA has brought this up several times. Other people have recommended this to the school board. School board members have recommended this to the school board. And so what we're proposing, or what I'm proposing for next school year, is a Correas Elementary School volunteer policy. So what I'd like to do is read the policy out loud. Everyone should have a copy of it, and it's shared online in your shared file folder for our online members. But basically what we're saying is Correas Elementary School is a not-for-profit educational institution that relies on volunteer assistance to provide support for its community programs. For the 2022-2023 school year, Crayas Elementary School is introducing its volunteer obligation policy. Each family is required to donate 6 hours of their time at Crayas Elementary School sponsored events that occur outside the school day, i.e. KPTA sponsored fall festival, Christmas event, winter festival, spring fundraiser, Lenten dinner, junior Olympics, the school sponsored gala, and the SSCH, the church sponsored picnic. So those are events that would qualify. Volunteer hours cannot be accrued during the school day. For example, hot lunch, book fair, Christmas shop, room parties, track and field, etc., would not qualify. The volunteer commitment and fee are per family, not per student. Volunteer hours are not transferable from family to family, nor can you accumulate hours from year to year. Volunteer hours are awarded for support of specified events and not for class-specific functions or in-school events. Volunteer slots must be fulfilled by adults. Student volunteer hours do not count towards this policy. We currently utilize Sign Up Genius to organize volunteer opportunities. Volunteer opportunities will be posted and parents must sign up and check in with the event coordinator day of to receive credit. So I'm going to stop there. The first part basically explains that we'd like to make volunteering part of the commitment that each family makes to the school when they register their child. To that end, we're asking each family, whether you have 1 or 4 or 5 or however many kids you have, to commit 6 hours over the course of the school year. This would officially begin, I think we said the school year ends June 30th officially, so hours could be accrued from July 1st, which would count the picnic in August, obviously, through the end of the following school year. And to make clear, this would not include in-school events like hot lunch, book fair, the Christmas shopping, room parties, track and field, but would be the larger events that really go to supporting our community, whether it's through fundraising, whether it's through community building, whether it's through, we can talk about momentarily what each of these events kind of means and why having consistent support is so important. So to that end, we know not everyone likes to volunteer their time or can't volunteer their time, or whatever the case may be. There's a million different reasons as to the decisions that we make, and every family has a valid choice. So the proposition also includes 2 options. So to secure this obligation, Crayas Elementary School will offer 2 choices to our families. Option 1, we make a commitment to the Crayas Elementary School volunteer program. I agree to write a depositable check payable to Crayas Elementary School dated June 1st, 2023 in the amount of $300, include family name on the memo line. This will serve as a security for our volunteer commitment. Volunteer commitment checks must be delivered to the school office no later than September 30th, 2022. I acknowledge that if I do not submit my check by the stated deadline above, my fax account will automatically be invoiced $300 and it will be due immediately. I understand my volunteer commitment check will be shredded upon my completion of my 6 hours of volunteer service. In addition, I understand that if my family does not complete the full 6 hours of service by June 1st, 2023, that we will forfeit the entire $300 deposit and no refund will be issued. Additionally, volunteer commitment checks will not be shredded for families not in good financial standing with the school by June 1st, 2023. So option 1 is I'm going to do my hours. To guarantee that, I'm going to write a check. School's not going to deposit the check. We're going to hold it. When you complete your 6 hours, it'll be ripped up immediately whenever those 6 hours are completed over the course of the school year. And then obviously, as stated, by the end of the year, if for some reason you don't complete them or you're in poor financial standing with the school, those would be the only 2 ways in which the check would be deposited. Option 2, we waive our volunteer obligation to Crayas Elementary School by choosing the volunteer buyout option. We agree to pay the $300 fee to Crayas Elementary School by September 30th, 2022. So obviously there are individuals, like I said, for a variety of reasons who aren't able to make that commitment in terms of their time. And so we would ask them to pay that registration fee by the same time that the other individuals have to submit their checks. Obviously, if you're not, if you don't pay on your own, we had talked about a link, we can automatically invoice or assess that through fax. The funds raised after talking with Beth and talking with the school board and looking at the various needs of the school, any funds raised from the volunteer policy will be directed into account earmarked for teacher professional development and ancillary materials for the 2022-2023 school year. So those funds won't just specifically go to maintain a bottom line, but they will be earmarked in particular for for teacher use.
Right, so let me explain a little bit about how we earmark funds, because we have 5 or 6 earmarked funds that we keep in a separate checking account. Anything that comes in earmark, so if we have a donor that comes in and says, I am donating money to the Correios School Fund, or to the assistance fund, or I am donating money to the philanthropy fund, or I'm donating money to the 5 or 6 specified earmarked funds, we must maintain the integrity of those funds. So those funds never get mixed in with anything in the operating account. If we get $5 that comes in for the Correios Assistance Fund, we will move that $5 out of the operating account, and it physically sits in its own savings account. We have an entry on the balance sheet. We have a restricted account that's called Assistance Fund, Philanthropy Fund. I think we have 5 or 6 of them. So I think it's very, very, very important to understand that I will have to work very closely with the link, right, to make sure that every dollar that comes in will physically get transferred into a separate checking account that is specifically tracked in QuickBooks, so that we know every dollar that comes into that account, and that's how we'll know. And we'll temp restricted is how we call it. We'll talk about it at our parish council meetings, and that money will be specifically set aside. It cannot be used for anything else but those purposes. So if you have an invoice, Beth, typically like we do now, if it's a Correios event, you will tell me, hey, Elaine, this is an invoice relating to professional development. Those funds will not be paid out of operating. I will then transfer money back into the operating account to then pay that bill and keep that balance going. So it's important for everybody to understand how we're going to accomplish that goal. If anybody has any questions on that.
Well, that makes sense.
Okay.
Just to put it in perspective, we have about 100 families, is that fair or less? A little less. So let's say 90 families. If 45, so half of those families decide, I can't commit to the 6 hours, here's my $300, that's $13,500. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're talking about a sizable amount. We talk about money coming in, but something that really could be utilized.
But I'll even take it a step above the money, Liz. I think we heard some pretty heartfelt, tear-jerking conversation by some of our pretty dedicated volunteers. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see the tears in the eyes of these people who are consistently here till 12, 1 o'clock. So I even say this goes above the money.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Like the money's okay, fine, great.
But I think
we had to incentivize, but what got me was sitting in a room and like, I'm trying to keep it together because these people are literally in tears saying we can't be here. We have kids too. I went to bed after event at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because I was so exhausted because I was here till 2 in the morning.
Right.
Someone's watching their kids. So that struck me more than
That's
that's great.
fiscal
We have
piece.
13,000, fabulous, but that's not what I.
No, but I think
you
people
know.
too need to hear the numbers, and that's one of the things I wanted to mention. So if you look at the events that would be impacted by a required, volunteer policy where you'd be able to get those hours, KPTA sponsored events like the Fall Festival. This year I put Christmas event and, speaking with Connie, but that would be the Santa brunch that they had this year. Typically there's a winter dance or some type of winter event. Their spring fundraiser, their Lenten dinner. But I could point to the Junior Olympics as being a great example of where it becomes desperate. The same 5 people spend a lot of hours, 40 hours, 50 hours. I can point to people at this table. We could talk about what it's like. I've never seen my child pay a Junior Olympic event ever, and so I think if more people helped and they realized how significant the Junior Olympics is, the Junior Olympics raises anywhere between, and the range is big. I'm stating this already because it depends on what you get donated, but the Junior Olympics can bring in on a good year anywhere between $15,000 and $27,000 for any of you with experience in like restaurants for a 2-day concession stand, right? And I can tell you right now, for the past 5 years, the concession stands have been staffed by maybe 15 people over the course of the weekend. So it's like you're operating on a bare bones staff, and that support would be fantastic. So
It's not even those days. We shopped for 2 weeks
2
ahead
weeks
of time.
ahead of time. I'm not even
How many
counting
gallons,
that. I'm not even counting
You know
those.
how
I'll
many
be honest,
cases of Gatorade you have to haul?
Yes.
We wanted to tell the Metropolis to take the Junior Olympics and go somewhere else because it's so tired and we don't have any volunteers. But if it wasn't for that 20 grand coming to Correios,
We would.
we would never do it.
Yeah,
I'll
we
be
were
honest.
talking about it
We would have
before.
said, take it.
It's a
and go,
huge
have fun
chunk.
with it.
And frankly,
I mean, we loved it.
we
loved
always
it,
say the
but-
same thing
but
when
it
we're
just
here.
beats us up.
When
Yeah.
we're here at midnight, like
Yeah.
literally, your legs hurt so bad you can't even think about the fact you have to get up and do it the next day. But we say the same thing. 10 extra people could be another, You know what I
having
mean?
shoppers,
That you don't
doing
having shoppers,
support.
having helpers. It's not just the
That's-
time, but you're talking about major opportunities to support and help your school. People say to
And
me all the
it's
time,
fun,
"What can I do
actually.
for
It's
Correas?"
fun.
It
It's
is
fun if
fun.
you're not exhausted.
It's
Yeah.
fun when you're organized and you're not running like a lunatic
And
because so-and-so
It's gonna
didn't
be
show
chaos.
up.
This year's gonna be chaos.
'Cause
because we're
everyone's
gonna be
so
back to
ready.
normal.
It's gonna be a
Olympics are
big
back
Junior
to normal,
Olympics.
so it's gonna be
Yeah.
Junior Olympics.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have 10 people.
You know, I look at the church picnic. I love coming to the picnic with my family. I love doing it. The amount of work it takes to pull the picnic off is mind-boggling. And I haven't even been involved at any type of a level as to, again, people sitting at this table, but just 1 year of kind of full-on helping. And I mean, you're no joke. We're comparing steps to one day. Jim's like, I think I'm at 25,000
I literally had
steps.
24,000 steps.
So those
Yeah.
events are huge. They are what keep us being able to operate, being able to keep our buildings opening. And I think we've just come to a point where we need to move forward with a plan that makes people understand how important you are, how important your donations and your contributions of time, not just money, but your time is to keeping the building open and running and profitable and happy and all these things.
If we don't have a community event, you don't have bodies in the building, what are we?
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point? I mean, the point is talking and camaraderie and laughing and being exhausted and smelling your gyros and onions and everything else. I mean,
Right?
It stinks.
It's
At the
true.
end of the day,
No,
we had a
it's
great
terrible.
time, you
It
know,
was
and
a
you
time,
you
but
do.
You gotta entice people, and maybe this is, you
And
know,
then for the people who can't or don't want to, then you can pay. I mean,
There's always-
I just
I
signed
know-
up for baseball, I'm like, take my $100, I'm
Yeah,
not helping.
That's what I was gonna say. There's
There's
been
gonna be
years
people
where you
that
can
don't go
volunteer, years
Yeah.
where you can't, years where you have things going on
Right,
personally,
it's
whatever,
life.
and that's life.
there's
And
no
I don't think,
judgment.
No. it is what it
I
is.
think the main message, and I think it's something we've talked about extensively that we want to, share is that you can be friends with the people you're volunteering with, but you might not be, but it's still okay to come together and work for the same cause, which is to ensure the future of our school and our parish.
And Liz, this will be just these 8 events. That's where they get to choose from.
Right. So again, I wanted to make it clear, we do have a lot of opportunities, in a typical year, a non-COVID year, where we're able to have parents in the building, whether it's for room parties or things like that. So anything that occurs during the school day does not qualify towards your 6 hours. We're talking about the events that go beyond just school support, but are actual community and community building and community support. I mean, that Santa brunch, I was out of town that weekend, but
That
a
was
very
tough.
small amount of people
5.
put a very tremendous amount of effort and pulled off a huge fundraiser. They made great money and it was
And
great.
the kids loved it.
And the
It's not
kids loved
even-
it.
I mean,
Yeah, that stuff's not easy. You're literally running a mini restaurant
Yeah,
out
you
of a
are.
gym with 10 people. Don't
Who know
complain
nothing
about the
about a
service.
restaurant.
Who know nothing about, yeah, that's always the worst too, but you've
I
got,
did drop a tray of parfaits the entire time.
hence the parfait.
That's why
just
the parfait, the whole thing.
So I guess if there's anyone that has a direct comment on,
No, I have one question,
Mhm.
maybe somebody to think about. The checks that get cashed at the end of May, the school year is going to be over. So I don't know if you have to say either for the current school year or for the next school year. But it's going to kind of be at the end of the year.
so it's almost like the way I look at it, it's like, it's almost like a prorated account where maybe you're dipping in periodically for, in this case, we said, teacher professional development, but we know at the end of the year, I mean, we'll have a really good idea by September 30th where we stand. And so I think once we see who's fulfilled their option, whichever option they choose, then I think we can see where that comes into play. I think this year, there will be a little uncertainty. And going forward in future years, we might decide, oh, this works better, or this would have been better, or maybe we should, but I agree, there will be a little uncertainty. Anybody else? My friends online, we feel good about it?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. and
I just
think
wanted to
it's,
share
pretty
the
much
dollar
commensurate with what
amount.
other private schools do in the area too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty typical.
I agree with Elaine that it's not necessarily the money, it is the bodies that they need. But to give you an idea, I go back 4 or 5 years ago when we first had that PD. We had a coach come on site, and remember that back then, that was 11.5.
Mm-hmm. The professional development's really, really pricey. So hopefully, whether it's through volunteering or contributing, we're going to see a benefit, I think, right? Either way, whether it's bodies in the building or, helping our teachers. So if there's no opposition or no glaring changes or anything, I would ask that we, move to pass the volunteer policy effective for next school year.
Is that me again?
I think so.
I motion.
We're going out with a bang.
I'm going out with a bang.
Jim?
I second.
All in favor?
We'll hide behind each other at
Aye.
church.
Aye. All right. All opposed? I think we're good. Okay, thank you. I honestly think this will be an excellent addition to our school community, and I think it'll help encourage people
Just
to
come.
get involved. One of the questions I think I field most often, and I feel implored to say this because I've had a lot of questions about it recently, because obviously we've been a closed campus, and once we made the decision to make masks recommended, the campus has not opened up yet. March 10th, I think the history fair in the East Room, and then March 20th with the program will be really the welcome back kind of opportunities. But I think it's important to know the school board, for example, was able to provide that lunch last week because 2 parish council members stood outside in the freezing cold and grilled 250 souvlaki, never came in the building. And we had 2 KPTA officers, 3 KPTA officers, I want to be exact, who allocated a small, tiny amount of space where they packaged the meals, never saw students, never walked in the hallways, never saw their kids, none of the above. Teachers, I believe, came down and got the lunches, is that right? Or and they were delivered in boxes, kind of how they did the Buena lunch. So I don't want there to be any confusion about what takes place here, because I think sometimes people need to understand we're all working towards the same end. And we're trying very hard to provide our children, which truly are the only concern here, with some normalcy in another otherwise difficult couple of years. As Beth mentioned, they loved the souvlaki. Everybody looked very happy. The middle school gobbled their meals down so fast and asked for seconds that we couldn't even capture them, shoving souvlaki in their faces. Right? Is that fair to say?
And they're like, we're done.
Yeah. I mean, my son was like, I could have eaten 3 or 4, and I was like, all right, whatever, that kind of thing. So
Here's
I
your
think
peanut butter.
I think it's important to understand that, the PTA has acted as our volunteer coordinating unit. And it's hard. It's hard when people are yelling at you. It's hard when people are constantly emailing you, screaming at you about volunteer events. And I think we really just want people to remember to come in and enjoy the school, enjoy the community, enjoy your time, come with a good heart, come ready to help, and realize that's what it's about. It's not a personal agenda. There'll be another hot lunch on Thursday, I believe, that will be done exactly the same way. The food is being brought in, packaged, teachers are picking it up, so it's not a volunteer opportunity. But I wanted to clarify that because I know there's been some questions floating around in the community about that. Okay, next on my agenda, we have volunteer. Okay, the calendar. So we were presented with a school calendar, just so parents are aware. Beth and her staff put the calendar together. They play with a variety. There's a copy of it for you guys. They play with a variety of different options, what that would look like, and then present the best course of action to the school board. And so you guys can take a minute and review. But this was shared with us a couple weeks ago, and so we've had a chance to look it over. Again, if there's not any major concerns or questions,
I just have a question. When is our festival, Jim?
The
20th
When
and the
is it with my
21st.
race?
Sorry,
It's not gonna be about the
20th and the
festival.
21st.
20th and 21st, no Friday night, we're not doing 3 days.
No,
can't-
I
I'm
know,
too old for
because
that.
we were choking, right, on the last night of the festival, saying, how the heck are we gonna get this cleaned up?
We
And not stink
Yeah.
when parents come in here.
We
And
talked
we're
about
smelling
it, we're gonna have
Beetlejuice.
the cleaning crew, the Imperial here all day Monday, the day crew, and we'll have Paul here. So the only thing we're gonna have Monday night is the preschool orientation, probably either in the gym or Eastern by 6 PM. Everything else, she's okay with that. No. the
Okay, you're
preschool-
good with that?
Yeah,
Because I know we were
talked about
so
it. No, we
nervous
talked about
last
it.
year.
The meet the teacher won't be till Tuesday, so by then everything's back to normal.
Okay.
The Hedo smell, you're gonna smell like Hedo all week.
It was just really hard
Yeah.
to
It was
feel
bad.
like
It
we
was
were
tough.
gonna get the building ready, like we were all in a panic on that
It
So
was bad.
what we
I mean-
decided was,
Yeah.
now that teachers have the fob, so our institute days will be the 16th and 17th.
Okay,
And that way, if they want to come in, if we want to have PD on the 18th and 19th, they're not obligated to come on the 22nd. So
Okay.
nobody will be here except in the evening for the preschool.
Okay.
By then, everything will
okay,
be gone.
we'll be
And-
cleaned.
If the East Room's not clean, we'll do it in the gym. If
Okay.
the gym's not clean, we'll do it
Problem
in
is,
the
we
East
didn't have Imperial here that
Didn't.
day. They're gonna be, and that was a mistake,
Yeah,
but they'll be here first thing on Monday morning, both Paul and the crew.
okay. I know that
Good
was a
question.
little of a, for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Heart-wrenching.
Little
Yeah, we talked
heart-wrenching.
about it. It was bad last year. Yeah,
It was
especially
bad.
new parents coming in there like, this place
It
looks like a
stunk.
tornado.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, perfect. Anything else? No?
Like Thanksgiving off all week.
Yes. Can we highlight that? Did we already
Yeah.
say that? We did, yeah. Thanksgiving will be a nice.
We'll be in Disney.
I think parents will enjoy this calendar. I could be wrong. I think it's a very family-friendly calendar.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll just work 15 hours each day. instead
Yeah.
of
We only
48
have
hours.
Yeah.
48 hours to work, not 72 or anything like
Just
that.
show up and we'll tell you what's.
I got the onions waiting.
That's what happens, I just jump in line with you.
With
and
you,
I jump in
yeah,
line
like-
with you.
3 years ago or 2 years ago, you cut every onion into place.
Yeah, I mean.
He still smells.
Okay, so Elaine, you want to do your job and vote to.
Oh, man.
Your
Oh, it's
motion.
not money this time, so I motion. I'll be off the hook. I
I
motion for
second.
the
All
calendar.
right, all in favor?
You guys are gonna miss me.
No opposition, we're good. I'm not gonna have my, Beth mentioned the dates for open house. I would like to encourage our school board members, our families, if you're listening virtually, please share. Word of mouth is the number one referral source for Correas. I really feel positively. Before COVID, we were well on our way to 180, 190, getting close to that magic number of 200 that's been floating around. And I'm very positive that Correas is going to continue to move in that direction. I think Beth's comments earlier about how we already have a tremendous amount of interest in pre-K is going to be a good precursor to where we're headed. So please share and encourage people to sign up and to see what we're all about. I mentioned the adjustment to the school board meeting dates. We can kind of keep that in the back of our mind that July and August will have to be adjusted. Again, they can be done virtually, but I feel like we might want to have the August meeting in person so we can talk about what that might look like as well. There's two other things. One isn't on the agenda. The last thing I wanted to mention is student council and joy concessions. So typically the PTA over the years has been tasked with, or other parent groups with helping to provide for concessions, whether it's at Joy Basketball on Fridays, at the goal games, things of that nature. And over the years, again, it's very difficult to staff those positions. And so it's floundered back and forth. Some years there's concessions, some years there's not, some years it's a parent. We could talk about 800 different scenarios. However, this year, the PTA made a commitment and had, I'll call her out, she's here, had a mom who was very dedicated to helping. So I called you out, sorry, thank you for that. But also had our student council advisor, Mrs. Letzos, took a pretty active role. And so essentially what ended up happening is they kind of split, the obligation. And so a few weeks ago, Mrs. Letzos reached out to me and presented a plan to me about how she, as the current student council representative and going forward, I believe she is going to continue in that position. At least she sounded like she would love to. And she asked if student council can take on Joy concessions next year completely. Run it, have the kids run it. Obviously, parent donations and things like that would be amazing. We'll take any support. They would take any support they could get if, organizations want to contribute or support. But she was really impressed with the opportunity that the students had that were able to come help. She was very grateful for the parental help that she got on a regular basis. But she really thinks it would be a great opportunity for the students to really learn what that type of commitment is. I mean, there's so many skills you learn from a concession stand, as we just talked about, volunteering and what it can bring. So I will tell you that we think that's a great idea, and the school board supports that. And so next year, student council is going to be in charge of Joy concessions. Goal concessions, obviously, that's something if the PTA can get volunteers for. I know that's a little bit harder to staff the goal games just based on when they take place, and other concession opportunities. But the Joy concessions for basketball, and if there's an opportunity for soccer, we'll let the student council do that and move forward. Just so you know, I think Connie mentioned an exact number in the communication, but the concessions brought in like $3,400 this year. That's incredible, And so, like I said, I couldn't be more grateful for the PTA help, but also for the ambition and the kind of way in which Mrs. Letzos tackled it. She had great ideas. You're making good purchases. I mean, I keep pointing, but you guys work very well together. And the kids were excited to help out when they could. So I wanted to mention that.
So, questions, 'cause I don't always remember the difference between goal and joy. goal is.
The Sunday
Outside
league where we play the other churches.
And that's KPCA.
Typically, the PTA has done, I'll be honest with
Sometimes it
you.
was Goya.
Sometimes it was
Back in the
Goya,
day,
sometimes it was
Goya.
8th grade parents, sometimes it was,
There's nobody
it's always kind of floated around. Goal concessions are typically harder to staff because the timing of
And the
them.
reason I asked is
Mm.
because can that be an event that's added to your?
Oh, to volunteer policy.
If we decide who's gonna be doing it.
If we decide, yeah, if we make it, I don't see why not, there might be
You
something
need a
we
point
could
person to
add.
make sure that they're, yeah.
Yeah. I know with goal, we've run into the issue of so many, parents of kids that play and they're in and out so quickly. So I don't know, but I don't think that's a bad idea. So I'll bring that back to Connie and see if
Yeah.
it's something that she wants to expand into.
Yeah.
I'm just
Um,
thinking if there's donations or shopping or.
Yeah, that's not a
setup
bad
or-
idea if we take it on. And there's also
Yeah.
gonna be, most likely, I was talking to Dean in there, you know how we all have these, like last weekend, there was a shootout of
Tournament,
basketball. We're gonna
tournament.
do a little tournament here.
Oh, yeah.
Kindergarten, I mean, first grade through eighth, like that shootout that you guys mentioned.
Mhm.
We're gonna do a south side shootout. That will kind of be the kickoff for either goal or Joy basketball, but we can use our Joy basketball.
Oh, nice.
So there'll be a weekend.
Yeah,
here,
so there'll be a
probably
weekend.
in
So
October,
yeah, I
there'll
think that could be, maybe those concessions can fall under the lump of PTA and I think we can
We
add
need to
those
do
in.
one south.
And then give the PTA, sometimes 8th grade parents want to take those over, sometimes they don't, it really just depends. But I think we can work with that. But thank you, I want to say thank you to Mrs. Letzos for taking that on and thank you for working so hard. I know the kids have had a great time, again, in a difficult year with student council, so that's nice to see. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we do have 3 new positions that the school is currently looking for. 2 are immediate hire, classroom aide, and then a technology assistant. So those 2 would be obviously, for this year and then moving forward. And then we did approve a position for a fine arts director for the Greek department. So this role, has a lot of potential, but this individual would be solely responsible for overseeing programs, Greek culture, Greek history related events so that teachers have time to focus on the classroom and on teaching while also integrating these programs without taking in too much class time. So that's another position.
So I can just give you a little bit of background because it's right here. The teachers have had to put some of their instruction on hold in middle school for this Asia Minor history project. And so the Greek Independence Day program is right around the corner. So there goes instruction again. So it's like they have to plan for that, they have to practice for that, where if the fine arts director was doing the planning and the execution of those things, then it's much different where we can go back to our curriculum and say, this is what I'm responsible for here, because otherwise we're taking all of this time off consistently, and it just takes away from curriculum planning and instruction. Because we can steal time for practice out of study hall, out of wherever PE, but right now it's all being taken out of.
Does that tech person need to be on site every day?
Nope.
So you just need her beginning of year to get computers going,
No,
hey,
it's really
something
the
went down.
schedule is super flexible, so I was hoping.
I might have one person, I'm gonna ask.
Student, like if you can come Mondays and Thursdays and this is what we need, for 2 hours here, and July morning, and the afternoon it's here, or it's really a schedule that.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Anywhere
I
from
might have.
7 to 4:30.
She worked at Boeing and she doesn't want to be downtown anymore, so,
So flex.
yeah, let me ask.
A consistent flex, where you can rely and
You have
know
to
when
be-
when you can expect your services or,
No, well, tomorrow they're here from.
Yeah.
all right. And we actually, as much as I would like. The positions, do we vote to, yeah, I guess we have to vote to approve the position, at least the fine arts one, the other 2 are immediate kind of needs, but Elaine?
Elaine motions to approve the 3 new positions. Tech, fine arts, and teacher's aide?
Yeah.
Teacher's aide.
Jim,
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, good. Okay, sorry about that. Instead of ending though, we do need to move to a closed session. So Elaine, for one final time, do you want a motion to move to a
I
closed session?
move to close the meetings.
To
Meeting
executive
adjourned.
session. No,
Go-
executive session.
go to
I need
executive
an
session.
executive session.
Executive session.
Jim?
I second.
All right. So we're gonna move into an executive session. I'm kicking you out.
Do we have parents
Yeah,
on
we
or
can
no?
go into
Yeah,
that.
there's some.
Can you have them connect to you on your?
Yeah, so we're gonna disconnect and we'll,
Yeah, I know.
my Dean and Krista, be patient. Give me a second to
Yeah, no
figure this
problem.
out. So can I just end,
Don't do financial stuff, we'll do it tomorrow.
No, I'm fixing
end stream,
the other preschool too.
right?
So I just hooked up the splash top so I can get the heck out.